Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Friday, it is the end of the week. Well, the working week anyway. I hope you're having a very good day wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. The weekend is very, very nearly on us. Of course, that means that Arsenal are back in Premier League action for the first time in 10 days with that game against Leicester tomorrow at the King Power Stadium. I will be heading there. I'm in the press box tomorrow, so live updates from me. If you can't watch the game and you want to follow it on social media, I'll be doing live updates. Not going to do a show in the morning because it's the early kickoff. Not really any point because there's not much time for you guys to watch it before the game starts. So I'll do my predicted 11 a little bit later on at the end of this show, and I will do a video after the game tomorrow, hopefully discussing a very good Arsenal win. Right, Mikel's been speaking at his pre-match press conference today at London Colney. He's spoken about lots of stuff, obviously about Kai Havertz's injury, about the potential of bringing in free agents on the back of that injury. Plenty of other stuff he's talked about. So we're going to go over some of the big talking points in today's show. I've got some comments from you guys at the end. Like I said, we'll do my predicted 11 as well. But first things first, before we get onto the Kai Havertz injury, there has been rumours doing the rounds on the internet and stuff like that. I've had loads of questions about it on all my different platforms. What's going on with Bukayo Saka? Where these rumours about that he's had a setback, are they true? So Mikel was asked about it in his press conference today, and he denied categorically that there had been any sort of setback with Bukayo Saka. There were suggestions that he was now going to be out for another further 2 months, which when you actually read the story, it doesn't really say that. It was quite a sensationalist headline, and so don't get too worried about it. Mikel's absolutely said there's been no setback, and he's just still on the exact time frame. Now, we don't know the exact time frame, obviously, and Arsenal have been very, very keen not to put an exact time frame on it, but sort of March, mid-March, that's kind of what, in my head, we've always been working towards. And Mikel certainly said there's no setback. So he was asked about if the injuries obviously have almost hastened the need to rush Bukayo Saka back, or the temptation is there to rush Bukayo Saka back because Arsenal are so short in attack. He said, I don't know. We have a long-term injury, so what is faster? In a 10-day injury, 3 days is a lot because it's 30%. But in 3 months, a week is probably not that much. It's still too early. He's in an early stage of the rehab. So when we get a little bit closer and he starts to do more demanding stuff and has more load, we will see where he is. There's no setback. He is fine. Again, it's just really hard to sort of look at Saka's return with any sort of certainty over when he is going to be available. You know, anything before... I don't see a way he's back before the international break, which is what, mid-March, isn't it? And so sort of when you come back, I mean, I'm going to talk while searching here, so apologies for it. I'm just looking at when the international break is. So the game immediately after the international break is Fulham, which is April the 1st. So before that, we've got 5 league games, haven't we, and 2 Champions League games. Obviously, it'd be lovely if Saka could be back before then. Like the final game before the international break is Chelsea, which is on Sunday, March the 16th. Could he be back then? I mean, that is mid-March. Maybe, but that would be, you would imagine that would be sort of very, very much best case scenario. I think we are looking at that April game, that Fulham game on the 1st of April, you've got the international break before that, would be the perfect time. But you cannot rush Bukayo back. I mean, the way this season's gone, if you rush him back at all, you know what's going to happen. It will just be a setback and then he'll be out for the season. They've got to take their time with him. It's been a really serious injury. He's not had this sort of injury or any sort of serious injury before. You know, with a hamstring like that, that's basically been reattached to the bone. The last thing, and I'm no doctor, but even I know that the last thing you want to do from that sort of injury is rush him back, get him sprinting before it's too early, and ping, the hamstring goes again. And then suddenly you're looking at next season before the first time you see Bukayo Saka back. So that is the update on him anyway. No setback. Don't worry about that. But, you know, we've all got to just bide our time patiently when it comes to Bukayo Saka and his return. Okay, on Kai Havertz, obviously there was a big talking point. Kai Havertz, Arsenal announced yesterday, confirmed yesterday anyway, that he would not play again this season, and potentially his recovery is going to run into pre-season as well, which isn't great news because obviously it would be great to have him back for pre-season so he could start that as normal with the rest of the squad. Mikel said, we were having a great camp in Dubai, recharging, training, having some time off, connecting again with nature in a different environment. And then the injury happened in a very unexpected way. Certainly it is a big blow because of the injuries we have had, but fortunately we've been through a lot this season. We've played without Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White all season, Tomiyasu all season, Calafiori for 2 months, Marino for 2 months, Odegaard for 2 months, Saka for 3 months, Gabriel Jesus, all of them So that's it. That's a challenge ahead. I love it and I look forward because we are still where we are with the things I've mentioned on top of playing 4 times with 10 men, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what the team is made of. I was asked how Kai did his hamstring, and it was in a set piece routine. Said he was going to stop a shot after a set piece. He stretched his leg and he felt his hamstring. Very, very keen, obviously, not to use it as an excuse. Which you could easily do because the injuries have been an absolute nightmare this season. But you can tell there by he was trying to be very upbeat, I think, Mikel, and he had to approach it that way. If he's like us, and look, let's face it, last week's been pretty miserable. I've been sitting on here feeling like crap talking about this day after day and thinking that's it, season done. How on earth are we going to survive with no forwards? He can't sit there in front of the cameras, in front of the world's media and be the same as us. He's got to try and be upbeat because he knows that the players are going to be watching him, the players are going to be listening to him. And if your manager's sitting there saying, what's the point? We're screwed. What sort of message is that going to send out? So there's no way he's going to say that, is he? He's going to be trying upbeat, and he was today. It was like, no, we're not using this as an excuse. We've dealt with so much this season. We're still there. We're still fighting. We're still second. We still won a lot of games. We're still on this unbeaten run, the longest we've ever been in the Premier League since I've took charge. Let's go for it. Let's just try and ride this storm and see where we go. He was asked, obviously, on the back of the Havertz injury, whether Arsenal could look to dip into the free agent market. It's been a question that lots of you have been talking about and debating, and he said we'll explore every possible situation and make a decision from there. I still can't see it, I have to say. I look at that list, and I know we talk about just needing a body to give people the opportunity to have 10, 20, 30 minutes off in the second half, potentially. I do absolutely see that argument, but I just still look at that list and I just think, are they really going to do that? They knew we were really short going into January and still didn't go out and sign a proper decent player on loan who you could have got, who could have really helped in the second half of the season. So are they going to change their mind now and go and sign a free agent who, is basically a free agent for a reason? I'd be very, very surprised, but let's wait and see what they do. He was asked about Max Dowman as well. Could he potentially be an option here? He's been training with the squad. He was out in Dubai, but we know there's the regulations with the Premier League that are stopping that happening. They can't play him at the moment because he was registered as an under 15 at the start of the season. You can't play in the Premier League unless you're registered in an age group above from 16 and onwards. And there has been reports that Arsenal may look to sort of get special dispensation from the Premier League to be able to play Max Dowman because of the injury crisis that they've currently got in attack. Mikel said, look, we had Max and we had many other kids in Dubai as well. It was a big opportunity for us to see them in our environment. It's clear, though, the rules on age and restrictions at the moment, and it is very difficult to change that as well. So even if Arsenal, have been looking, and from Mikel's suggestion there, maybe they have, if he knows that those rules are very difficult to change, it is something that they have explored. But from that answer, it looks very, very unlikely. And look, if you turn into a 15-year-old to come in and try and save the season, then you're in real, real trouble. As talented as he is and as exciting as it would be to sort of see what he's got at this very, very young age. Just the fact you sort of turn into a 15-year-old tells you you've left yourselves very, very short in the window. Talking about that, he was obviously asked, look, if you could go back now, would you do things differently in the January window? Would you have done even more to try and sign a forward? He said, no, we're always put in a situation where we are an injury or two away from a very risky situation. When you try your best, and do everything that you think you're capable of, and you've done your homework and you try it and you don't achieve it, then yes, you can have regrets, but at least you have done it. So says maybe there's some regrets over January, but he's sticking to that same sort of story that he produced at the end of the window, where it was like, look, we did all we could. We're happy with how hard we tried, but we couldn't get anything done. Still not sure that's the case. But anyway, and he also said, will you sort of wave the white flag now? Is that it for the season? Is it a case of why don't we just sort of protect what we have, make sure we finish the season pretty well, but basically protect ourselves and go again next season? He says, if I do that, I'd prefer to go home. No chance. Then asked whether he will change the approach, given the sort of different profile of Arsenal's forwards now, no big sort of target man in Kai Havertz, and you're going to be playing sort of a false nine and and Nwaneri on the right wing. He says, we have to. There are certain things that we're going to have to adapt. And again, it brings other opportunities as well, because we're going to have different front line of players that are very unpredictable. They're good. They're so good in one-on-ones, very creative, very sharp. And it's going to it's going to give different headaches to the opposition. Maybe so, but I don't know. When you look at certainly what I've seen from Raheem Sterling, certainly so far, when you talk about being unpredictable and good in one-on-ones and creative and very sharp, it just doesn't really fit with what we've seen so far from Raheem Sterling. And I hope, I mean, it's a massive opportunity for Sterling. You know, what better way now to sort of announce yourself at Arsenal in a time of absolute need, when you're desperate for one of these forwards to really hit some form. You know, you've got this experienced 4-time Premier League winner in Raheem Sterling, who everyone's questioning and wondering if he's past it and all that sort of stuff. What better way to shut everyone up and to answer your critics than to step up right now as an experienced senior player and produce? Do I think it's going to happen? No, just because there's no evidence. I've not seen any evidence that suggests he's suddenly going to click and we're going to see the Raheem Sterling of old. But, you know, prove me wrong, Raheem. It'd be absolutely brilliant if he could go and do that. Good news on Ben White. Obviously, looking ahead to the team news for the Leicester game at the weekend. Mikel confirming he is available. He says Ben's been training more regularly now, so we still have to manage his load, but he's going to be available. Yes. On who might start up front now, he said you don't have to be very creative with the options that we have. I'm sure you're going to get it right. On whether Ethan could play as the 9, he said, I think it's more about when. I think it's in there as a possibility, but more than a necessity is that he's real quality. He's been playing as an attacking midfielder on the right wing, and I think he's been really good in that position, so that's fine. So that certainly suggests that it's not going to be Nwaneri as the false 9 tomorrow, and I don't think it will be. He'll be on the right. It'll be Trossard as the false 9. I'm absolutely sure of that. And then going back to what I was just talking about on Raheem Sterling and whether this is the opportunity for him, he said yes, and for the other players as well, for Leo to probably play in 2 or 3 different positions. It's between all of us. We have mentioned that many times. It's adding value from different players. It's probably a little bit different in adapting to the qualities and the strengths of our players. So go for it. The spirit is pretty certainly the same. Okay, so this is what I'm going for on my predicted 11 for tomorrow. I think it's relatively easy, I have to say, unless he does something completely out of the box that I'm not expecting, like the change in system or formation that we have spoken about in the shows so far this week, which I just can't see happening. Maybe in game, but not from the start. So I'm going Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis, Skelly as a back 4, Partey, Odegaard, Rice, and then simply Nwaneri on the right, Sterling on the left, and Leandro Trossard. I'll be surprised if it's anything different. We'll have to wait and see if he does spring a surprise, but that's what I'm going for today. Just quickly, before I move on to some of your comments that you guys have said, there was an interesting stuff actually from Arteta in the press conference about, he was talking about the sort of load on players and whether, you know, how this is contributing to the injuries and how it's not just an Arsenal thing, how there's so many injuries across the league now. And he was asked about what has caused that, and he says you can't prove it. So the evidence we can provide is very limited in many aspects, and every case is very different. Obviously, some of them we know are based on load and minutes. That's inevitable. We have players who have been injured who have played 130 games in the last 2 seasons. So in the end, it's an accident waiting to happen if you continue to load and load. Is it this season? Is it accumulation of that? Is it the stress of that? Is it luck? Is it preparation? Is it methodology? There are a lot of factors, and it's very difficult to point at something, but the schedule is super demanding. And for certain players, especially explosive players, it becomes a real issue. And obviously, look, you know, there's no doubt that I've talked about it. The calendar is mad. The footballers are playing too much. But then you can also argue the case of, well, you haven't protected yourself enough, Mikel, have you? Haven't you built the squad well enough in attack to be able to ensure some of these players don't have to play 130 games in the last 2 seasons, and they don't have to start every single game, and they don't have to play 90 minutes every single game. So there's obviously that. But there was some interesting stuff when he was talking about fatigue and the sort of load and how he means it's an accident waiting to happen. And he was talking about the muscles. And I thought this was really, really interesting in terms of players and why they might be breaking down. He was asked about how now that you can't really train, or are you training anywhere near as much because of the amount of games that it's playing? You see, it's very limited. We train less than ever before. You see our data, we train less than ever. It's normal. There's no time for training. When we talk about training, it's not only what happens on the grass. The biggest problem is that you don't train the muscle. That's the problem. So the muscle is undertrained. And when you expose the muscle and the tendon to an exposure that they cannot absorb, because the tendon normally needs 72 hours to recover. So a lot of people talk about what we're doing outside. It's not outside, it's inside, when you have to load that muscle for 2, 3, 6, 8 weeks. When you haven't trained it, the risk of injury is much bigger. One, because the muscle and tendon are not recovered, and then it's not prepared to absorb the load and the stress. You're going to put it under again every 3 days. That's the problem. From a sort of medical point of view, I thought those were quite interesting comments. We don't really hear that sort of stuff. It's all about, go out and train, but it's not. It's that actual sort of allowing the muscle time to rest and recover, which you just can't do when this calendar is like it is. And maybe that is the reason, because it's not just Arsenal. Yes, Arsenal at the moment are really feeling the hamstrings because of Saka, Martinelli and Havertz, but across the league, players are just dropping like flies. And I want to see the best footballers on the pitch all the time. I want the Premier League to be as strong as it possibly can be. Now, I don't think this has been a high-quality Premier League this season. And I think that is a direct result of too much football being played and coming off the back of the Euros and everything like that. And these players just don't get a break. I mean, I've said it again, Man City and Chelsea, what they potentially face this summer as well with the Club World Cup, a ridiculous competition that's been introduced. If they get to the final, they're going to have no break again, going straight into the new Premier League season. It's crazy. It really, really is absolutely mad. Right, moving on to what some of you guys have been saying. Aaron's got in touch. He says, the lineup I hope to see from Arteta to face Leicester: Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, MLS, Rice, Odegaard, Marino, Nwaneri, Trossard and Sterling. The reason we should use Marino as a left 8 is that he can interchange with Trossard to have the option of a big physical player up front when needed. Give White half an hour if he's ready, and hopefully we can see some alternative attacking solutions from the bench. I expect Tierney, Calafiori, or Zinchenko to get in some attacking positions. Interesting there in terms of Marino playing as the 8 and becoming that sort of extra attacker and that more sort of physical presence in the box that maybe Arsenal are going to sort of lose with Havertz not there. Aaron Alexander's got in touch. Your predicted 11 is Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Skelly, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Sterling, Trossard, Nwaneri. I think that's the same as mine. You say the Leicester game does look like a stage that Mikel can test some new things that has been going around, such as Marino as number 8, Calafiori and Tierney in a more advanced role. If we kill the game early, there might be time for some tweaks and experiments regarding tactics. Maybe youth players such as Deji or Cabia could get some time because they can make a difference, but we need to rest players at certain periods. Interesting stuff from you. Thank you very much. Baron's talking about the Saka setback. Obviously, we spoke about that at the start of the show in terms of the estimated to be mid-April. You say, really and truly, do you think there's any value in Arsenal looking to bring in a free agent, even on a trial basis? I mean, the risk the board took in January was negligent at best, with 8 to 10 games with Trossard, Nwaneri, Sterling, Butler, Deji, and Calafiori, a defender who has an injury history, has suggested attackers to not only try to remain in top 4, but remain fit. That's just a dereliction of duty. I'm sorry to be so negative, but there is a real risk we fail even to stay in the top 4. You're right. There is. Hopefully that's not the case, but that is the situation Arsenal are in now. When you say, is there value of Arsenal looking to bring in a free agent? They have to be a certain quality. And I'm of someone who thinks, a body is not the worst thing in the world right now, but they actually have to be able to play football. They have to be physically ready and capable to play football. And a lot of the free agents that I'm looking at the moment, I don't think are physically ready or capable to play in this Arsenal team. Yes, you've got to be a body, but you've got to be able to perform. You've got to be able to go on for 20, 30 minutes and contribute something, even if you're not at the level of Kai Havertz or, the footballers, the players you're coming on to replace. But if you're this really unfit player who has not played in a long, long time and is basically going to contribute nothing, in fact, might even hurt you being on the pitch, then no, there's no point in that. So if they are going to dip into the free agent market, it would have to be someone who is a body, who can take the load off everyone else, but can actually contribute something when he's on the pitch. And people throwing out Diego Costa and people like that, I just don't think he would contribute anything. I think he'd actually negatively affect Arsenal at the moment. Seeing what he did at Wolves when he was at Wolves, and that was a while ago, he was fitter and healthier then. Now, if he came in, I just don't think he'd be any help whatsoever. Quickly from Dave from Ottawa says, with all due respect, gents, this is obviously to me and James in response to extra time yesterday. Thanks for your great content. We need to We need you to stop being apologists for Arteta. His fingerprints are all over this. I refuse to accept that he is not part of the general inertia here. He is stubborn and risk averse and wants the perfect signing, and he has taken tidy sums of money from the board and invested in places that were not the same importance as our striker Sorkic. He is not solely to blame, but neither is he blameless. I don't know what you want from me here, Dave. I've literally sat here and said that everyone is culpable, including Arteta, and he absolutely has his share as the blame for the situation Arsenal are now in. I don't know what else you kind of want me to say. I've said exactly that. I'm not being an apologist for him. I think he is absolutely has to share the responsibility. Of course he does. He's overpaid players. He's not been good enough in rotating players. And so, yeah, I don't know what else you want me to say. Do I think he's absolutely the main problem why Arsenal didn't sign anyone in January? No, I would, and I don't know this for a fact, but I still think that's more on the board than it is on Arteta, because I think there's no way anyone could convince me that he would decide not to sign Ollie Watkins in January over £10 million. He would have wanted that deal done. That would have been a decision from the board. I'm convinced of it. But, is he to blame? Is he just as much to blame as a lot of other people for the situation Arsenal found themselves in? Yes, absolutely. The summer transfer window clearly hasn't worked very well. You brought in two players who, while they're good players, haven't really contributed this season, some of which is down to injury, but also they're just not done what we were hoping they would do, certainly in Marino's case anyway, and that money could have been put to better use. So, yeah, I don't know what else you want me to say. I've been saying this. I've been consistently saying it for months now, so I don't know what else there is for me to say on that. Quickly on Elias and MMHCC have both asked about recalling Nelson and Vieira. I've said this a few times now, but they can't now. That's been and gone. Anyway, Vieira, Nelson's injured. He's got a hamstring injury as well. I think he is close to coming back now, if he's not just about back in the squad, but he's been out for the last 2 months with a hamstring injury as well. In terms of Vieira, that chance has gone. That needed to be done in December. I actually watched a little bit of the Porto game, the sort of final 20 minutes of Porto yesterday, and their 1-1 draw with Roma in the Europa League. Vieira was on the pitch. Didn't really contribute much, I have to say, but I was watching, hoping he might do something pretty good. But he just looked like this sort of usual Fabio Vieira we've seen. Would he be useful right now? I think he probably would be. But yeah, no, that chance has gone in terms of potentially recalling him for the squad. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you for your time. As always, I do appreciate it. Like I said, there'll be no preview show in the morning because it's the early kickoff. There's not really much point, but I will do a show after the game from the press box with my player ratings, my immediate match reaction as well. Hopefully, fingers crossed, talking about a big Arsenal win. Enjoy the end of your Friday. Enjoy the start of your weekend, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.